If you're interested in supporting this work, you can support me on Patreon. Click the link down below on Patreon, or I'll put the link up here in the corner to Patreon, so you can go there and become a Patreon supporter.
Get mantra and meditation MP3s at JasonGallant.ca.
At first, the spiritual journey begins with there. Because it begins in the mind, right? And the mind's all about there, or then, or somewhere else. It's always memories or goals or things to achieve. There's something projected. Because there is a subject-object relationship. There is you and this other thing called enlightenment, or this other thing called God, or the universe. The spiritual journey begins there, and it's necessary. It also begins there, and there are spiritual experiences where you have a relationship with mystical experiences. There are mystical phenomena that happen. Mystical archetypes. And there's many different ways to look at these things. Maybe it's you collecting pieces of yourself so that you're whole again. Or they're nothing more than collective dreams, right? It doesn't really matter which way you look at it, but you can agree that they are conditional. They are here and then they are not here. And the reason why the spiritual journey begins like this is because the mind is all about there. It's all about somewhere else. So even the spiritual path has to speak the language of the mind at that time. So as you are traveling out of this maelstrom of thoughts known as the mind, you are saying, there is a peaceful place somewhere. It's almost like you're upgrading your mind in that moment. You're upgrading, you're finding a place that's clean, some place that's more pleasant for you to reside in, as this other clutter exists around you. As you start to chase the spiritual dragon, this peaceful experience, or this kind experience, or this loving experience. And that too is necessary. It's like you must upgrade the mind, or at least live in a place that's more pleasant, before you can start letting go of the clutter. But in a terrible twist that usually surprises everyone on the spiritual journey, is that the journey changes from going there, or achieving enlightenment, or being somewhere else, to being here. Where in a large part you feel you started from. You feel like I was here before. Why did I go on this big journey just to come back here? Why did I do all that stuff just to be back here? Well, I'm here to say that it was probably necessary. Because this here is a deeper level of commitment. It's not a here through the mind experience of here. It's a deeper level of grounding here. It's almost like you had to climb through the mind to rid yourself of the mind, or at least the static or ignorance that was overlaying itself over top of here. So the here you knew before wasn't really here. You were projecting what you thought was here. So once those projections start to, let's just say once you start to have a distance between you and those projections, not like this fly here who's in my face, but you start to create a distance between these projections, the structure of your mind starts to fall apart, the structures of the illusion. And then from there you start to ground this here-ness, this spaciousness, this freedom. And this here is much different. It's not the same as the here in the mind. So it's common for people on the spiritual journey to also say, well, geez, I went there, I was doing this, I did it all wrong. The journey is here. And I will say they're right and they're wrong. Because if you did not go there, then you would not have come here. It's very confusing, I know, but it's all about point of view. The perspective that you had then, it was necessary for you to travel there, outside of the overwhelming immensity of static and noise that you had in the here. Because your here was nothing more than a projection at that moment. If it feels like I'm tangling you up, that's okay. That's probably what's happening. Just remember to return here. Just be here. See, one trap people get caught in is they have certain experiences as they are traveling on their journey. They are busy going there to the enlightenment goal or the enlightenment attainment. And they have these magical experiences along the way which are amazing, and they are true in some way. But in the end, you detach from all of that so that you remember here. You are more fully immersed into here. And here is unconditional. Here is always with you, and it carries an experience once you turn your attention fully to it. It's like a rocket when it launches into space, and there's different stages, and you let go of a certain stage of the rocket, and then you're just floating in space. It's the same thing as the mind. At some point you let it go entirely and you are just here. This is who you are. There's no doing, there's no chasing, there's no ideas, no prescriptions, no healing modalities for who you thought you were. There's just this. This is the foundation on which everything else sits. It's the backdrop. It's you. There's no I here. There's no I am this, I am that. There's no notion of that. When there are no notions, there is freedom. When there's no conditions, no impositions upon this moment. See, there's freedom in that. There's no need for things to be needed. This is where you ground. You ground here. In this immensity that is you. And then the problems of life and things, they're all things that move over top of the surface of who you are, but they're never who you are, and you don't measure your immensity based on those things. Everything that goes on in this world is nothing more than momentary events. The coming and going of phenomenon, spiritual or otherwise. And although some of those phenomenon are quite pleasurable, chasing them is not the path to enlightenment. Be in relationship with that which is unconditionally in relationship with you. That makes a lot of sense, right? What's been with you all along, that's what you're here to remember. That relationship that has never left you. You've turned your attention away from it, but it never turned its attention from you. If you've found this video or this podcast, depending on where you're listening to this or watching it, chances are you needed to be reminded of this. Remembering doesn't happen through your thoughts. If you sit here long enough, you will become aware of many things, but the things you're aware of the most are the superficialities of you, the sufferings, the phenomena with the largest amount of noise, but not the silence from which you came from. So fall back into the silence that's here. All noise runs over top of it, but the silence is actually the background. Can you feel that? Can you taste it? It's right here. It's always been here. That's the joke, right? It's the thing that's been here the whole time that you have chosen to ignore, consciously or unconsciously. And this is where you can refresh yourself. Find the restoration and fulfillment that you seek. Don't judge yourself based on the different types of noise or the flies that land upon you. These are happenings. It's the nature of this density, but it is not where you find your fulfillment. Your fulfillment is your birthright. It's already here. So I hope this helps you on your spiritual journey. Take care for now.